You finally manage to write an entire story, and not only that, but people don't even hate it. You get a publishing deal, make some money, and grannies at the local bookstore throw their diapers at your podium with their phone numbers and emergency medications inside. For a fleeting moment, you feel like maybe you accomplished something great, and now you're thinking it's time to show the world what you, Mr. Big Storyteller, can do. Starting a new story from scratch and hitting up this number from Gretchen to see if her family needs a new grandpa. But then your publicist says, "Hey, bro, everybody loved your first book. Let's keep the magic going. Why don't you, make it into a series?" And for the first time since Megan Brown accidentally touched your hand in gym class, you feel excited about life and all of its opportunities. But then you realize, oh dear God, I have no clue how to write a series. That's why today we're going to fix that problem, going over the benefits of telling a series, how to properly expand your story world to accommodate your growing plot, and how to reinvent your characters' arcs so that the story doesn't crash and burn like your attempt to ask Megan Brown to the movies. To do this, we'll be looking at Attack on Titan's ever expanding story arcs, plot, cast, and character motivations, starting with point number 1. Figure out a plot that expands the scope of your story. So, look, I don't know about you guys, but part of the reason I got into writing in the first place was because of my commitment issues. When I write a story, it's meant to be over when you turn the last page. Otherwise, you leave some loose ends open and you get a text in 8 months saying you're the father, and now you have to make time in your schedule for a blood test and appearance on Jerry Springer in front of Gretchen's grandkids. But the truth is, telling a series is one of the most lucrative ways to get into storytelling, not only because your audience and publicist feel like they have a lot of good material to work with, but because series have the most room for expansion. Think of it like your friends group. Do you really want to roll the dice and deal with a new person every time you go out? Or would you rather stick with your tried and true best friend, Skizzledorf the leprechaun, who's been by your side ever since you witnessed that murder back in '99? That feeling of familiarity is no different for your audience. Once they've bonded with a cast of characters, they'll want to stick with them for as long as possible because nobody wants to make new friends or relationships, even when their therapist says it's time. So, how then do we take a story, let's say one without any loose ends or intentions of being a series, and open it back up into a new story? In Attack on Titan, we have several arcs, or rather, several sequences of events with a clear end goal in mind. These would fall under the battle for trust, the female titan, the royal government, etc., where we have conflicts to overcome or mysteries to solve as our end goal. Think of each arc like it's its own book, and each episode as a chapter. We have a rise and fall in action for each episode, and each episode brings us closer to the ultimate resolution of the book. But what happens when we complete our story and then our publicist wants a sequel? Welcome to what I like to call the spiral method of series writing, named after my life, which gradually seems to spiral out of control like a flaming dumpster on a carousel rolling down a very steep hill populated by unsupervised children. Like my life, the key to implementing the spiral method is to gradually expand the scope of your story's problem. Originally, I was just my parents' problem, then the street's problem, and now I'm the world's problem. Likewise, Titans ending all life on Paradis was Aaron's problem, but then Aaron's problems became the world's problems. The difference is that, unlike with my life, the worse things get for the characters in your story, the more interested people are in watching it. So then, how do we implement this into our storytelling? Well, whereas conventional stories have circular story paths, meaning they end essentially where they started in order to bring the story to completion, for spiral storytelling, we huck a little wrench at the end of the story circle to alter its trajectory. For Attack on Titan, spoilers. These wrenches would be at the end for the Battle of Trust arc, when everyone realizes, sure, the wall is sealed off, but there are still Titans beyond that wall, so we're all still fucked. Another wrench would be at the end of the female Titan arc when we learn Annie was also a Titan shifter, and so are the walls protecting the city. So now we're all more fucked. And finally, another wrench would be at the end of the royal family arc, where our heroes uproot the patriarchy, only to realize the patriarchy was the least of their problems because everyone outside Paradis wants them turned into fertilizer, and they're all super fucked. See the trend? So hold your balls and bonnets on this one, kids, because in reality, what we are effectively doing for a series is the exact same thing we do when stringing a number of chapters into a book. Once our heroes attain their goal, the the thing we thought would make their life great and easy, we immediately throw a but into the story. Not like that. What I mean is, our heroes finally learn who the enemy shifters are in their ranks, but then Eren gets kidnapped. Or, Paradis is finally safe from normal titans, but it's only a matter of time before Marley firebombs the island and makes a land grab for beachside property. Each but forces the scope of our story to expand ever so slightly, causing each resolution of a problem to cause the onset of another, larger problem, so that a situation which originally started as a boy seeking revenge against all Titans evolves into a boy seeking revenge against the world, which is then the second trick to writing a series. Your characters have to have larger goals for each story arc, and these goals have to force them to change. Story time. When I was a little kid, my goal was simply to lose enough weight to not have boobs. Once I hit that goal, my next goal became to have fewer fun roles for bullies to grab onto. And eventually, over time, my goals evolved into making my bullies fat by having them sit around and watching my YouTube videos for hours on end so that one day they get their fat rolls stuck in a revolving door. These are the dreams America was founded on. But enough about me. You can see from the example that, with each success, the next goal becomes bigger, and with each bigger goal, the more people got involved. The more people get involved, the higher the stakes. It's a constant ramping up of tension, sure, but then we also need to take into consideration how this increased tension affects our hero's arc. Do they change for an ultimate good or ungodly evil? Do they succeed, get burned out in the process, or sacrifice themselves for the cause? What has to change within your character in order to make getting people stuck in revolving doors their goal? Now, of course, you can explore these themes in a singular story. You don't need 10 volumes to explain how power corrupts or how the smallest person can make the biggest differences. But damn, is it rewarding to show all of the nuances, subtleties, and trivialities that can drive a character to do some extraordinary things. In Attack on Titan, we have Eren Yeager, whose goal never exactly changes, but both the scope and the means to success do. All Eren really ever wants is to untighten all Titans and keep his friends safe. And at first, it's like, rad, you go, little dude, fight the power. But after a life of loss, suffering, betrayal, and a hand kiss from hell, we watch Eren change, not in what he wants, but in what he'd be willing to do in order to achieve it. Initially, offing all Titans doesn't sound too bad. It sounds hard, especially when Eren gets eaten 30 seconds into his first fight, but there's no moral conflict, so it's just a logistics problem. Next comes overthrowing the government, offing several people that are keeping Eldians in the dark, which seems a little more morally gray, but they're the bad guys, right? So chop lop popping them down is kind of okay and still only half of a logistics problem. But finally, we have mass mowdown mode, like there's an indiscriminate sale on John Deere tractors hosted by Snoop Dogg, and the goal is to cut as much grass as possible, only the grass is people, and the hardest part is ignoring the screams. We've all been there, but we see that there's no longer a logistics problem. Eren is the embodiment of several atomic bombs, or a mosh pit at a Taylor Swift concert, and now the issue is a moral one which Eren came to terms with while we were all worried about Zeke's childhood trauma. The tension in the story is not solely derived from the difficulty of the path ahead. Yes, flattening the world is a hard logistics problem, but stampeding everyone on that world in the process is a bigger problem because it poses a moral question. Do you really want to go to all the effort of proving the flat earthers right, even though none of them will be around to hear the good news once you're done? And that brings us to our third and final point, which is that, flat or round or intergalactical, you need to have a world big enough for your story and characters to grow into. Back to when I was a little fat kid, I had hermit crabs. Not really. I wasn't allowed to have them because they scared my mom. But I learned that they grow and then need to move into a larger shell. If a larger shell is not provided to them, they will crawl out of their tank and into your ear, using your body as their exoskeleton and compelling you to drive to PetSmart and spend all of your money on a battle body and a harem of hermit hoes. Hermit crabs also love alliteration. I learned that on Animal Planet. But how this applies to your story is that you need to have an environment big enough for your story to grow into, whether that means literally expanding the territory involved in the story, increasing the stakes for all parties currently involved, or expanding the danger posed to a greater number of people. Attack on Titan does all three, where each season, those characters threatening our heroes increase their power, the risk of death for our central characters increases, and the demise of Eldia and the world as a whole grows in probability. Things just keep getting worse, and problems just keep getting bigger. Bigger numbers of casualties, bigger consequences for wrong decisions, bigger, um, driving forces, and the last thing you want to do as a writer is create a story world that can't expand in one dimension or another, which, admittedly, you'd be pretty hard pressed to do, but it does increase the need to get creative. For example, we find our entire cast inside a city that's humanity's last stand. It's going to be pretty hard to expand beyond this city unless it is a lie that Paradis is humanity's last stand, and in reality, there is a whole other world beyond the walls just waiting to kill everybody we know and love. Or maybe we don't need to leave the city, but we need to increase the threat of the villain within the city, meaning that our threat is no longer mindless cannibalistic giants, but rather an entire government system of thinking individuals who have kept a secret for 100 years by less than nice means, and will make you wear a sweater vest if you step out of line. Or let's just dial everything up to 11 when the entire world is our stage, and the local government is no longer a problem. We can expand the enemy to literally everyone, not from our little town. And now the people at risk aren't just the soldiers and government, but every single innocent life on either side of the conflict in this ultimate battle of good versus evil. Whatever the aspect of storytelling, the key to a successful series is in upping the intensity, while also taking opportunities for your audience to breathe. Each arc will be more intense, each challenge will be greater, each late night with Gretchen will be steamier. But at the end of each chapter, episode, book, or arc, take a small step back, a big deep breath, and allow a brief moment of calm where you almost feel like you accomplished something great. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to mow over that like button if the video helped you get through your lunch break, and until next week's video, go write the best series possible. Oh, wait, and check out my book. The end.